Hey guys, I'm Gwen and welcome to Faith Walks. Hey guys, welcome to Faith Walks. Today on our show we have the lovely Sarah Barbour. Just like in the first episode, this is one of my best friends. I think if you watched the first episode when we had Lily, I told you guys that she was a two-parter. This is the other part. Meaning Lily and Sarah are one person now. Period. In my mind. It's fine. So Sarah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I am currently a student. I'm at TCC. Not going to say specifically what campus.
Yeah.
But I'm taking nursing right now. I have been in a couple of jobs previously, but right now I'm not in a job. I'm not making that much money, but I will be eventually.
Nursing.
Yeah, it's in nursing. That's the other part. I'm in for nursing. The ultimate goal is to be able to become either a nurse practitioner or a PA and be able to use all the knowledge that I know medically and be able to go into the missions field and apply it spiritually in any way that I can. That's going to be entirely led by God, and there's a few missions that I want to go on, but those are going to be led by God as well. My hobbies consist of music, specifically more listening to it. I'm a huge connoisseur of any types of music. I have vinyl, cassette tapes. Obviously, I listen to stuff on Spotify and everything. And then I also like reading, specifically old classics or what's another one? Like fiction, some romance novels.
You do fantasy, but also nonfiction.
Nonfiction. Oh, I do love nonfiction. I love some good Christian nonfiction stuff. Poetry. I love poetry. And then I also like to write a lot. I journal a lot, and I write almost every day. Anything else? Anything else specific?
I don't know. It's up to you.
My favorite color is, I think, orange.
You can't tell by probably a lot of clothes I'll be wearing. My favorite color is green.
Oh, is it? I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Well, it's changed a lot.
Is it that green?
I don't know. It's a lot of different shades of green. Like this sweater. Guys. Thrift stores.
This sweater is Gwen.
This is me, actually. For those listening to this podcast, I have on a grandma sweater that's all different shades of green. And you may be thinking, oh, it's probably ugly. No, it's not. It's beautiful.
It's like grandma squares, but not crocheted.
Yeah.
They're just a bunch of different patchwork. And they have such cute little embroidered flowers and a little basket.
It's so cute. I don't know how to really describe it. She described it well. But I found it at thrift stores. Thrift stores, sponsor me. Just thrift stores in general.
Goodwill, sponsor us.
No, just thrift stores in general. Not even Goodwill. Just thrift stores.
That'd be a lot of sponsors. Holy cow.
I'd be rich. That's not what this is about, though. It's about Jesus.
Period.
Jesus. So speaking of Jesus,
yes.
How long have you been a Christian? Well, actually, first, how do you define being a Christian?
Okay, that's actually a really good question. So, a lot of people, especially nowadays, when you're in, especially kids who are in mega churches, they obviously are always like, ooh, yeah, I'm a Christian, but they don't entirely live out the way Christ does. So what I like to do is I specifically say, I'm a Christian, I believe in Jesus. And saying that really clears it up of just, I believe Jesus died on the cross for my sins, and I believe that without his saving grace, without his blood shed on the cross for me, I would be completely lost and I wouldn't actually be saved.
Yeah.
So what was the question? How do I define
what does it mean to be a Christian?
I think it's just as simple as that. I think it's just I believe that Jesus died on the cross for my sins and that he saved me and that he rose again on the third day, and I'm ultimately living for being in eternity with him, and not only working for him when I'm finally in heaven with him, but also working for him and committing him to my entire life right now, or committing my entire life to him, I should say.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. So, using the knowledge of what makes you a Christian, a two-part question is, when did you first believe in Jesus, and when do you think you became a Christian?
Okay, so I've believed in Jesus ever since I was little. I think it's one of the reasons why I'm so gullible is because, my parents, they constantly poured truth into us and we constantly took it in. So I think I actually did believe in Jesus as a person my whole life. Like, there wasn't any moment really that I believed he didn't exist. But it's like knowing an acquaintance and actually getting to know them as a friend.
Yeah.
Where I kind of knew of Jesus, I knew who he was, I knew his whole story, but I didn't know I didn't know the heavy impact of that story, and I didn't know especially how it applied to me.
Yeah.
So, are you asking specifically like the moment I think I like got saved?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I remember, I know somebody from our church says this all the time. Like, it's nothing really big or spontaneous. Like, I wasn't some gang leader and then I found Jesus and I had.
What are you talking about? Of course you were. You're only 18. You already led a gang. Great.
I served some hard time and then I met God. Yeah. No,
Juvie. Okay.
Juvie. I was, I think I was about 12 or 13, and I had always been like introduced to like chick tracts, like those little gospel tracts, and you know, my dad would always like give me them to like run into. Like, we would always go out every Sunday after lunch, or during lunch. We would go out for lunch after church, and he'd be like, "Go wash your hands and put 2 of these tracts in the women's bathroom." And so I had always known what the chick tracts and everything were, but I had never actually looked in them. And one day I like, looking back on it now, I can obviously tell it was the Holy Spirit that was giving me that curiosity of what actually was in them.
Yeah.
But I just thought one day, I was like, I want to read this. So I actually don't remember what the specific contents were in it, but there was like that classic picture of like one side's a cliff and then another side's a cliff, and there's like a middle, the bottom is hell and the upper one is heaven, and like Jesus is on this side, or God is on this side, and then Jesus is the mediator.
Yeah.
So it was that kind of classic thing, and I remember seeing that, and I remember realizing, like, the Holy Spirit just gave me so much reality about, he gave me awareness of how real heaven and hell was.
Yeah.
And it was like, just my little 12-year-old brain was like, oh shoot, I think I believe this. And so I went to my mom and I was like, what's it like actually being saved? And she walked me through it. She told me that she like walked me through, you know, accept Jesus into your heart and know that he died to save your sins, and admit it, that you want to commit your life to him. And that's what I did. I gave my life to Jesus when I was like 12 or 13 in my dining room. In my dining room.
Nice.
My dining room bench.
Nice. That's good. So you said, like, what your mom said is it's committing your life to Jesus. So what does that look like for you?
Okay. So I want to be specific when I say I don't think like my salvation is severely works-based. Works, we already know this. Works are obviously to show that we are saved rather than to save us. And it's a way to especially show God that we love him. He may already know it, but obviously I don't think we always really know it. And of course we'll never really be able to love him in the way that we want to, or the way that he deserves. But I think being able to consult God a lot before you speak or before you move or act is something that I've been trying to do a lot more. And then additionally, directing my mind, focusing that, you know, like my intentions, whatever they may be, I want to make sure that they align with what God wants for me and what his standards are. The last thing that I want to do is, because when I really stop and think about it, it's really sad. Pardon me. It's really sad thinking that I can so quickly think of practically like, oh, if God's not helping me in this situation, then my only hope is for Satan to help me. And it's sad how quickly we can change to that mindset.
Yeah.
So by committing to God, I would really like to try to avoid that kind of mindset as much as possible. Being able to tell God, like, hey, I don't love you in the way that you deserve, but I can love you in the full way that I possibly can. And furthermore, just committing my future to him, knowing that my husband, my friends, any relationships that I have right now are also relationships that I'm going to leave to him in the future.
Yeah.
And then additionally, obviously, my job, I want to entirely be able to leave that to him.
Well, smart.
Yeah.
Well, smart.
Thank you.
So going back to not being able to love God like completely and loving him all that we can. Trying to phrase the question.
Yeah, I get you.
how did you realize, like, oh, I can't give God the love he deserves? And also the second part is, how do you love him with all that you can?
So this is actually something that's really cool. I'm reading The Four Loves right now by C.S. Lewis, and it's something that God's. I know it's
Love C.S.
such
Lewis.
a good book, and it's something that God is showing me each and every bit of the way. When I was reading about Storge, I was really trying to, which is for anybody who doesn't know, Storge is family. It's regular like affection. It's like a love of a mother to a daughter, or vice versa. And then it's also just like a firm basis of where all the loves really start when you start to develop relationships.
Mm-hmm.
During that time, I was really focusing on my family. And then I moved on to phileo, and I was focusing on my friends. That's friendship. Then I was focusing on eros, and I was thinking about any relationships. And then now I'm finally in agape. And through each one, like I specifically learned how a lot of them are oriented towards people, and realistically, the first three of Storge, Phileo, and Eros are really the only ones that we are capable of.
Mm-hmm.
It's agape, the supreme love that really loves us unconditionally.
Yeah.
And being able to say, like, I love God, I think means applying all those three to him in their own way. I was reading in the final part of C.S. Lewis calls it charity, which I think is a beautiful English word for it. But I was reading in Agape today about how without Agape, the first three loves wouldn't even be as beautiful as they are.
Yeah.
They wouldn't even really be able to have a firm starting point. So really realizing that I would want to love, really realizing that I only love God in a limited way that I can. Lewis's book has really helped me out with that. And then additionally, I've just had a lot of experiences previously where I've actually thought, I told Lily this already. I actually had a thought the other day where I was having such a hard time, and I was, if I can be so, I don't know, sensitive on here.
You can.
Like, okay.
It's up to you.
Well, I was being very tempted. I was wanting to give into tempting emotions. I was thinking a lot about my past and about how, you know, like I just don't, because like in my past relationship and everything like that, it was all really hard, and God was telling me, like, don't think about that right now. And then I had like a thought of just like, well, the only person that would really make me tell me that it's okay to think about my past relationships and how I was hurt in that way would be Satan. And when I had that thought so abruptly that I was like, I can't believe I just thought that. And it really woke me up to, I didn't cry when I first thought about it. It was just, it's such a natural thing to think that way.
Yeah.
But when you think about it that much, when you're actually just like, oh, the devil is the only one that can help me now, it's really hardening to hear yourself think that.
Yeah, and actually believing it.
Yeah, and actually having you consciously wake up to the thought of like, wow, I just thought that. I was so willing to leave my first love that I was just ready to go right back to Satan. And then additionally being able to, so like, yeah, that's especially a big moment where I was like, I can't really love God the way he deserves to be loved, because I'll always have intrusive thoughts like that. It'll always be my first nature too. Mm-hmm. And then additionally, we get into evil schemes. We always want to do something for our flesh. That's truly why that's our flesh's motive.
Yeah.
And then additionally being able to commit to God any love that I possibly can is, like I've said before, committing my romantic relationship, committing my friendship relationships, and my family, all as much as possible, especially not having expectations in each of them, because God can work through them in ways that I won't expect.
Yeah.
So being able to give those fully up to God, I think, is a beautiful way to be able to show that you're loving him as much as possible.
That's good.
Yeah, thank you.
That's good. So I like this topic of the four loves. So if you're okay with it, I was thinking we could go through kind of the four loves and seeing how, one, like discussing what they are, and kind of not how they work, but like that, and also how we give that to God. Ooh. And how we use it for like his glory.
Okay.
You know, using each one, because you said like agape is like the supreme love, and that's like God's love for us, and that's what we try to give him, but because of how we're wired, and way back in Adam and Eve ate that dang apple.
Darn it, Eve.
That stupid apple. The flesh, we have these temptations, and what is really the test of our spirit is if we give into those temptations. Yeah, because you're not going to stop having those temptations, which sucks. I wish it were different. Sadly not, but so using that knowledge of, we will give into temptations, sadly, and we will have temptations. How do we not give into those temptations? And also going through the four loves, diving into what really are they and how are we using them for God's glory instead of our own personal glory.
Okay. How long do the answers need to be, by the way? I have no idea what my limit is.
However long you want.
That's a period right there. I can work with that. Okay.
You guys are going to be hearing a lot of Sarah today.
I hope you don't get tired of my voice.
They won't. Voice is beautiful. Anyways.
You don't get tired. I'm sorry. I just literally whispered into the mic. I don't.
ASMR. It's okay.
So yeah. The first one, and C.S. Lewis, by the time I'm actually at the end of this
There's the book.
C.S. Lewis, sponsor us. He's dead.
This is Tico.
This is Tico. He's my gremlin. Obviously, you can tell.
Say hi. I'll hold him for now.
So I'm finally like at the very end of this book. You guys can't see what I have like that much. I'm at the very end.
Wait, describe for the listeners, because I forget this is a podcast sometimes. By the way, Tico is a dog.
Yes, Tico is my dog. I'm so sorry. I'm looking at like a video camera. I'm actually.
What even is Tico? A demon? Sorry.
No, oh my gosh. No, we're talking about Jesus. There's no demons. So I have the book of the four loves in my hand right now. The four loves are originally spoken in Greek, and I referenced their Greek names earlier: storge, phileo, eros, and agape. And there's no, like in English, we only have one word for love, no matter what. Like, oh my goodness, I love that show. I love this person, but like obviously you may not love that person as you do your dad or your best friend or your husband. They're all a bunch of different loves, and actually I'm pretty sure there's like more. You're not going to be licking my feet while we're doing this. No, sir.
That's a dog.
Ew. Yeah, Gwen's not licking my feet.
No!
Sorry, I don't know if you're going to have to edit that out.
That's okay. Probably not.
I'm just going to sit comfortably like this.
Probably not going to edit it.
Word. But I'm pretty sure there's more words for love for a bunch of different kinds of love in Greek, but these are the four that we primarily knew. And there's these beautiful words that Lewis finally is able to put as close as a meaning to each one as possible. And I think charity is especially that for agape, but he points at storge. He calls it affection. Phileo, obviously, is friendship. We also get it from, I think it's phileos, from Latin, I believe. And we've heard it in words like Philadelphia, which is the city of brotherly love.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Interesting. So phileo, friendship. And then he doesn't give any specific name for eros. He still calls it eros. And then charity for agape. So he mentions in affection a lot of the basic ideas of loving somebody. Affection, like I said earlier, is a love that you like a father may specifically give to a son, or a mother to a daughter, or vice versa. And a lot of the time, affection for us is where a lot of the loves start. It's the firm found. I'm sorry, I don't know.
Oh, you're good.
Okay. It's where a lot of the loves first start. Whenever somebody is starting to develop a love for somebody, it usually starts out as a mere affection. We have a lot of affection for our friends, and especially for our husbands and wives. And then we can start to develop affection for God eventually when we start to get to know him. So one of the things that he mentions in affection, though, is that affection usually has to do with those first beginning feelings of love, of finally like getting to know somebody and almost in a way putting them on a pedestal. When you first see somebody, like we had it in our friendship, I know I've had it with Lily, I've had it with plenty other people, where you meet somebody, you're super excited, and you kind of like, you don't know them long enough to know their flaws yet.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh my goodness, you're this perfect person, I love hanging out with you. And you're like, you make me laugh all the time, but obviously that doesn't last forever.
Yeah.
And affection, what Lewis says specifically about affection is something that he puts it in a beautiful way, where he says we have to understand that God is love, but love is not God.
Ooh.
So a lot of people are like, you should spread your love, you should love everybody, which is true, but you shouldn't worship love as you do God.
Ooh.
Right. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal writer, and I love that he brought that up. Another way he says it is that a love that becomes God also has the potential to become a demon.
Ooh.
We have this ability to put a supreme power and authority under the veil of love, that it also is able to in a very ugly way rule our lives.
Yeah.
And it's especially when we let that love start to like be a part of our everyday thought. So affection is where a lot of those beginning feelings of love start. And one thing about affection that he says is that if affection is going to start, and especially if you want it to continue, you have to put the work in. And a lot of people say, you have to compromise when it comes to love. I think you have to collaborate a little bit more, because love takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of sacrifice, and that's where affection kind of ends, is when you actually have to start to put the work in. Then it can go into the next two loves, which is phileo and eros. Phileo, friendship, is obviously about that overwhelming feeling that you've found somebody that you're going to be walking through life with, and that's in a obviously a platonic way. Lewis says that we see lovers often looking face to face at each other. Friends are side by side, looking towards something else.
Yeah.
So friendships are oftentimes something that it can't be about the friendship itself a lot of the time. It needs to be something worth walking through with somebody else.
Yeah.
Even if Lewis says, like, even if the friendship is just about white mice or chess, it can become something so beautiful. And so those who say like friendship, he says it as in like, it's a question of, do you see the same truth as I do? Not in the way that's like there's a bunch of different truths, but in the way like, do you see things the same way I do? And are you and I able to like talk about those and collaborate and be able to walk through life in a similar way?
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, that does make sense. It just reminds me of like all those videos you see of like how you know they're best friends is when you start like acting like each other. And I've noticed so many things in like our friendship.
I know it.
Of just like little habits that we've just picked up along the way. It's like, where did you get that habit, Gwen? Oh,
I've picked up your I know.
I know.
Yeah, no, it'll be just like, oh my goodness, that was so fun. I know.
I just picked up so many random things. I don't even know.
I don't know if I've noticed them in yours. I don't know if there's any of mine that's been.
There has been. There has been. I think we just adopted them as both of us now.
Period. Let's go.
Hey,
we're so awesome.
Heck yeah.
So friendship it's about being able to walk side by side with somebody. And when he says, like, do you see the same truth as I do? It's not the friendships that say, no, I don't care about the truth. I just want friends. Those friendships are not going to flourish. Because when you're focusing on just the friendship itself, or the person itself, himself, herself, it's not going to last very long. And often doesn't, unless it becomes something deeper. And then he moves on to Eros, where he talks about people in Eros often look side by side. One thing that I read about in Eros previously, because this is right before Charity, is how does he put it? I like the way he put it beautifully in a way that says, sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second.
That's okay.
Eros. He talks about how, yes, I remember. So he talks about how people who are usually in a relationship, a lot of the old theologians worried that that relationship would become God in a way where they worship each other.
Oh, yeah.
Lewis said, I don't think it's quite the other person that they would worship. I think it's that they would worship Eros himself. He kind of personifies Eros.
Oh. I don't think it's spelled like that, but I think there's like a Greek god named Eros.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the god of love and the god of fertility.
It works.
So Eros, he personifies Eros as somebody who like promises something that he can't even uphold.
Oh.
He promises to always be there, and yet he's also the most finite, the most mortal of our loves, because he's there one moment promising everything and then he's gone.
Yeah.
And so he says a lot of the time that people will more likely fall in love with love as opposed to the person that they're with.
Yeah.
Which is something that I know I struggled with a lot, is idolizing any relationship that I had. Yeah. I did that previously. In my last relationship, I did the one before that. And I'm specifically trying not to do that with the one I'm in right now. And it's proving to be hard, but a lot of it comes from the instruction that God's given me in this book. And that leads it beautifully to finally agape. The previous loves have all been focused on more the people down here. Agape is a lot of how we see God and how God also loves us. Yeah. Agape is strongly focused on no conditions at all. And God gave us his conditions, but he chooses to love us in spite of it. It's not that like, oh, he has feelings that he can't control. He can't help but loving us. Well, but he obviously can. But he chooses to love us because that's just how loving he is. He is love himself. And that's something beautiful in comparison to the last three loves, is that if you don't first know that affection is something that you can't put a God over, it brings up the question of, then who is God if not the person that I'm idolizing, or the person I'm starting to love, and how can I see their flaws as something that can be almost a testament to God and how they use those. When I'm in a friendship, are those friends being like godly friends towards me, and I'm able to love them in the way that God wants me to? And then furthermore, in a relationship, am I actually committing that relationship and our future to God? And it's a way of being able to realize that all these loves really, he compares it beautifully to a garden in Charity, where he says, a garden can just be a garden. It just flourishes in its own way, but it also digs up several weeds. Like it just, the way it grows up naturally, it'll just happen. Yeah. But when we, as like the lovers, usually that has a bad connotation in romance, but as I'm using it in this case as somebody who just loves. Yeah. The lovers tend to it. They try to dig up those weeds. They try to make sure that they're able to tweak that love in a certain way. But ultimately, God's the one who makes the garden grow in its natural way, in any way possible. So he's the one who's the main flourisher of anything that we have when it comes in concordance to love. And he's the one that ultimately gives each of the loves their worth. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
that's
really
good. So, yeah, God makes all of it, like, worth it.
Yeah, he does.
Because going back to the friendship one, because I relate most to that, because I love my friends. Yeah. Yeah. Hey guys, I just wanted to take this time as we're in the middle of the episode to take a short break and just thank you all so much for listening and being a part of this podcast journey with me. It truly means a lot to me. And just taking another short break to ask you to please subscribe if you haven't, share, like, comment, and if you ever want to give your testimony or talk about your faith, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, and we can see about having one of you guys on the podcast. Anyways, back to the episode. Love y'all. And we're back. So just had to take a short break because Sarah's lovely sister walked in, and I love her. And I'm sad I didn't get to see her nephew, but that's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay, I guess. Anyways, I was talking about friendship, and how I love my friends because they're fantastic. And Tico apparently wants to get pet.
He wants to be our friend, but he can't right now.
That's so sad for you. Anyways, it's because for the longest time I've always been pretty good at like making friends, but I never really understood what having like true friends meant.
Oh yeah.
For the longest time. I was a military child, so we didn't move around like a whole lot because I was born towards the end of my dad's career, because we've been here for like 7 years. Oh gosh, that's gross. Been here for 7 years. Anyways, but I was always pretty good at making friends wherever I went. But then I would always like lose those friends, mainly just losing contact with them because, well, one, I was younger and I didn't have a phone. And two, just, making and losing friends is a part of life. So I was just regularly friendly with a lot of people. And then I got to high school and I started developing more like, oh, this is what
Real friendships
are. Because it wasn't towards like the end of high school. Like I met Sarah like 5 years ago. And I was like, this is a true friend. And then I really didn't know what that meant yet. I gotta be honest. It's okay. It wasn't you. It was me.
I know.
It's not you.
I know it too. It's always me.
No. Stop.
Right.
But God, it was really what I'm trying to get at is once I started giving my relationships to God, He started showing me real relationships. And I was like, oh, I've been missing out this whole time. That's crazy. Thanks. And as soon as I just like put it in His hands and was like, God, I really trust you in this. If this is a friendship that's meant to stay, let it stay. If this is a friendship that's meant to affect me, let it, affect me in any way you want it to affect me. Because, friendships affect you both good and bad.
Yeah.
But in like the last year, and a little bit last year, it's crazy that's been a year since.
I know, right?
That. Anyways, God's really showed me just community by realizing He's like the ultimate true friend.
Yeah.
Because people are always like, yeah, God's your best friend, and like, or Jesus is your best friend. And when I was younger, that was always a nice thought because I felt like I never really had a best friend. Because you always see these things like, oh yeah, me and my best friend, and it's always one person. I never had that one person.
Yeah.
And then I realized that's okay because I have like 3, so that's fine. But I'd always find comfort. Like, Jesus is my best friend. But it really took me a while to learn what that meant. It's, wow, Jesus is my best friend.
He's actually here.
He's here with me, and that relationship is never going to go away.
Yeah.
That's something I've also always struggled with is relationships coming and going, which is fine. It's life. But
as long as God wills it for them to be there, they're always going to be there.
Exactly. And Jesus is always going to be there. So taking into the thing of going back to, what was the Greek word? Phileo. And the friendship. And having, like, you explained a little, like, earthly friendships, and it's about the relationship. What does that look like with having almost just, I love saying this, having a friendship with Jesus? That's so cool.
Yeah, so you're talking about, like, secular friendships in comparison to my friendship with God?
Sure.
Okay, is that what you meant?
I mean, sure. You can do that, or
you mean godly friendships?
Both. Do both.
Both. I'll do both.
Both is good.
So, both is good.
Forgot what that was from.
Both. That's from El Dorado.
Oh!
That's from El Dorado.
I love that movie.
Both is good. Evelyn and Catherine would be so proud of us.
I love those movies.
So,
okay, I'm done.
I know, I was trying to process the question again. So,
okay.
Hear their background music.
Okay.
So I came to this shocking conclusion. A while ago, for those of you who sorry. For those of you who don't know a lot about my testimony,
Meaning
most of them.
No one watching this probably?
Yeah, most of them already know. But if there is anybody
No, I'm
who
saying
doesn't know it.
I feel like a lot of people probably don't know.
Oh, well, I figured that, but just a majority of the people we already know are going to be watching.
Well, they are, but I don't know your full testimony, I don't think, actually.
Oh, word? Word?
It's because you never shared it with me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
Maybe
okay.
this is the time. Maybe.
If you want.
Word?
Go.
Well, okay, so previously, like, I came to the shocking conclusion that a bunch of the stuff that really led me to become more serious with my relationship with God was 2 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
With, like, my past relationship,
All that.
my ex-best friend,
Yep.
2 years ago.
Oh,
and that's
now
crazy.
I remember. Never mind.
I completely forgot. It's been, like, I was
that is crazy.
I was still in the mindset that it was
so
like
weird.
a year ago.
Yeah.
And obviously it's not. It's been double that. So when I had those friendships, and obviously several more, I've had people who will be like so distraught whenever I don't spend time with them, like, all the time.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be upset when I feel like they're not receiving as much attention from me as they deserve.
Yeah.
And then also, like, whenever I do actually meet those nice friends, like, I had my ex-best friend now. She was probably the light of my life at the time. Aside from my relationship that was back then, my new relationship that was going to be happening probably a few months later, my best friend was probably, she was like the girl I always want to hang out with. You know, if we weren't hanging out together, we were, sorry, I don't know if you can hear Asher downstairs. They probably can.
That's okay.
Should we wait?
It's up to you.
I don't know. It's up to your audio.
Oh, you're fine.
Okay. So, if me and my friend, I won't say your name. If me and my friend were, like, hanging out, we were, like, doing something, going out. If we weren't going out, we were at one of each other's houses. If we weren't together, we were calling. If we weren't calling, we were texting. If we weren't texting, we were thinking about the next thing we should do together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was just a constant let's hang out every single day. And, you know, like, instead of, like, me waking up and first talking to God, I woke up and I first texted her.
Yeah.
She was a lot my idol. And it's in those kind of good friendships where you wholly focus on them. Like I said before, you guys focus on the actual friendship itself. But in that case, the only reason the friendship really held up is because we had an ultimate goal, but that goal wasn't directed towards God. It was directed towards the fun that we could have every day.
Mm-hmm.
It was directed towards hanging out with our friend group at the time, what our next shift was going to be like when we were hanging out together, the relationships that we were in at the time, the newest gossip. It was a bunch of these very finite things that are here one moment, gone the next, and then you have to replace them.
Yeah.
So those are what it's like to be in a very secular friendship. Obviously, like, you already know that, but it's something that's very stressful. It puts a lot of weight on one's shoulders to feel like they constantly have to hold up somebody's happiness if they're not happy. And then it also can be a very anxiety inducing feeling to feel like, now I have this person happy, can I keep them happy? So that's kind of like the sickness about that kind of love that can really follow you, is that if you're the center of one's affection, then you feel like you should stay there, and if you're not, then you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And that's oftentimes, like, obviously that's not love. So that, in comparison to the friends I have now, I cannot express how much stress it takes off my shoulders to have friends that are directed towards God, because, like, I could not talk to you or Lily for a week, maybe a month, and probably will have, like, spans of time in between it, like, longer than that, where we don't talk for a long time, or we can hardly hang out. And yet I still know that if you guys are still a part of my life, you're meant to be.
Yeah.
You've mentioned that obviously previously, but being able to know that I don't have to put, like, obviously I've had times where I've had to put effort into my friendship with Lily and such, about, like, we're having an argument, or maybe, like, there's this spit of the moment where we're like, oh, we're probably going to disagree on this or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's being able to understand and know you can't just, like, run away from those moments. You have to be able to face them. They have to be worked through, and that is what takes the work. that's what takes a lot of the collaboration. But knowing that even though we have disagreements like that, if we are aware that we are doing this for God, not for each other, we're going to stay a lot closer, and we're going to be a lot more committed, and our friendship is going to be a lot purer in that way. And it's just going to, like, we hear it all the time. We'll be out in public and people are like, you girls are so beautiful, you shine so brightly, and we're always like, yeah, that's Jesus in us. But it's also knowing that it's Jesus in our friendships and how we react with each other.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of stress off in that way. It also, it has its, I'm not gonna lie, it also has its problems too. And like, it can have its difficulties when other people see friendships like the ones we have, and they're like convicted, they're kind of concerned or something like that with the maybe friendships that they have with us. But truly, it's able to speak volumes to the mentality that other people can be in, how much they need to focus on the Lord, and then additionally how we also need to show a lot less favoritism towards each other, and more favor, not favoritism to everybody else. Because God says, you know, favoritism is a sin, and we should be consciously aware of the way we interact with each other, and especially when other people are around, and be aware that as much as we are willing to commit to this person, in some ways we should also be willing to commit to another.
Exactly.
So that can obviously have its deceptions when it needs, but that's in comparison to secular friendships versus the friendships that I have now, the true hard friendships that I really think are friendships sprouted from truth. That's from you and Lily and several other people that I know very dearly. And then also secular friendships as well as godly friendships in comparison to my friendship with God. It's something that's so raw and so beautiful, having a friendship with God, because it's so funny. I'm not usually somebody who puts herself into denial, but I know if I were, and I know for people who are, that's darn near impossible for God, because he always knows what you're thinking. Obviously, the good thing is that God will always give you time to actually come to him with it, because he's always merciful and compassionate in that way. But it's being able to, you know, like I have these moments where I'm panicking about something, and I'm like, oh no, I need to figure this out like right now. And I always think, like, let me text Gwen, let me text Lily, maybe I'll be able to do this. And I remember, like, I've had those moments previously where I had to remember, well, God's right here, let me talk to him first. And it's not as hard as, like, it's really not that hard to call or text somebody. But in comparison to just being able to think something or pray about it, and just being able to bring it to God, and especially with I'm not saying it's a bad thing when God doesn't give you an answer right away, because a lot of the time he does not. But it's in the kindest ways that he does answer when you need it, that you're able to rely on very firmly. Yeah. And then additionally, he speaks to me constantly, not just in reassurance, but also in correction, in a very soft, kind way. Yeah. He can also be very convicting in a very harsh, judgmental way, in the judgmental way that is God's way, and authority. But having that friendship with God, of being able to constantly go to him with things, and also to be able to know that any way that I thank him, any way that I'm able to praise him, he's aware of how sincere it may be, even when I'm not fully aware of it. Being able to fully come to him with all my thankfulness and happy moments, but also my saddest, are things that I truly don't think you're able to get when you're with friends on earth, be it how godly or not godly they are. There's just some things and some vulnerabilities that only God really can know about you, that other people just cannot. And it's not that you're ashamed of that stuff, it's just that they wouldn't understand in the same way God does. So
yeah, that's good. Because us as earthly humans who don't know a lot, I mean, we think we know a lot, we don't. Hate to break it to you guys.
True. That's so true.
We don't know a lot. It's just not because we're young. But is God... Okay, hold on.
Yes.
You're never able to know a person completely. Yeah. You can know everything about them, like your spouse. You can know everything about them, everything they've gone through, their whole life story, but you're never going to be able to know exactly what they're thinking.
Yeah.
Because I know even just when I'm talking or if I'm trying to journal, I suck at journaling because I don't even know what I'm thinking. There's like 5 thoughts running through my head and I'm like, wait, I don't know what's happening. So like the fact that sometimes we don't even know what we are thinking.
Oh yeah.
But God does is just, it's mind-boggling.
He's able to meet you in the moment even when other people are there.
Exactly.
He's able to be like, hey, he's able to either like put you in check or be able to like say thank you or something like that.
Something that I've encountered a lot with when praying, when I'm overwhelmed. Sometimes it doesn't always work because then I just go deeper in myself, but that's my problem. Is when I'm really focusing on God when I'm overwhelmed, and I'm like, sometimes all it literally takes is just me repeating Jesus over and over and over.
Yes.
Jesus, 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 Jesus.
Yeah.
Is God's
That's
really
good.
able to pinpoint what you're thinking.
Yes.
He's like, you're not thinking about me. He's like, you're repeating my name, but this is what you're dealing with right now.
Yeah.
Because sometimes things can get so overwhelming that it's like, I don't even know where to start. Like, something I do sometimes in my room is I tear my room apart, not because I'm mad or something, because I'm like, I'm going to deep clean my room, and then I just take everything out, and it's a disaster area.
I feel like that's kind of a good way to try to do it, is to try to just clean everything.
You try, but then I sit there, and I'm like, where do I start? Because there's like piles. You can't see the bottom of my floor.
So then it's just your mind brought to reality.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to get at. My mom walks in. She goes, where's your floor? And I'm like, I don't know.
I misplaced it.
It's out the window. But that's somehow like how it can feel like in our brains and in our minds. Is it's so overwhelming. It's like everything's just sprawled out. And like that sock over there is moving. We don't know why, but it is. I've never encountered that. It'd be pretty funny though. The sock just inching along like,
ew, that's so grody.
Like an inchworm. Okay, anyways.
What's the sound from like, it's like and then like it's like something from Fox and the Hound.
Anyways. But that is our brain.
It's gonna be weird for people who are listening to this.
That's okay. They'll have a good time, I hope. Have a good time. It's also weird because I have a silent laugh sometimes. So if you ever hear me just breathing, it's probably because I'm laughing. Just. Anyways, that is our brain. We are a mess. And God's like that one person that comes in and it's like, we're going to start with the sock over here. That's moving. I don't know what.
We're going to start this tiny little thing.
Right? He takes the tiniest little thing and says, this is the source of this one problem right now. And I'm not going to have a solution right now because he doesn't always give you a solution. God's timing is perfect, but sometimes it's hard.
Yeah. Yes, that's so true.
And he's like, but this is what we're going to focus on, and this is what I want you to give to me. So in saying all of that, God knows our true selves.
Yeah. Even
we don't know our true selves. So
that's good.
Yeah. Comparing, it's hard to compare the relationships.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah, we can deceive ourselves so quickly, and God's really good at being able to pinpoint the actual problem and then bringing it to our minds.
I was like, oh, it's fine. That's not the problem. And then
you don't have to deal with that.
God's like, actually.
I'm sorry if you hear me talk like this. I'm drinking something.
What are you drinking? Rum?
Tea.
Vodka?
Tea! I'm drinking tea.
She is actually. I made it? No, I didn't. I watched her make it. I don't like tea. Anyways, cancel me if you must. I don't like tea.
I'd cancel you. I drink tea all the time.
Sucks for you.
What? No, it's not. It's healthy.
You know,
it's
water
healthy.
intake
in a nice way.
Well, okay.
Anyway.
To Jesus. So knowing that God's the only one who truly knows you, how do you reflect that in your relationships?
Knowing that God's the only one who truly knows me?
Yeah. even though like it can be hard,
Yeah.
and you're not gonna be like, actually, you don't know me at all.
Oh gosh.
We're not friends.
Actually, you might as well just cancel all your relationships right now.
Yeah, actually,
none of them
guys,
are gonna be like Jesus.
I have no friends.
Don't actually do that. That's
other
horrible.
than Jesus.
How I reflect that? Do you mean like how I'm able to? How do I take that information and apply it to my friendships, or how am I able to?
How do you? Yeah. So taking that in, knowing like earthly friendships, whether secular based or godly based, just earthly friendships in general, because I've struggled with this as, never having that one true best friend.
Mm-hmm.
How do you take that into almost like comfort? It's a hard realization, knowing, one, you're not going to be anyone's one true best friend. That's hard. And two, knowing, I mean, it's comfort to know Jesus is your one true best friend, but how would you take that to telling others?
I'd probably say not telling them. And that's not to say like, oh, don't mention it to them.
No, but
it's to say like, speak more through your actions.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because it's a different thing of just being able to tell people, hey, you're not my friend, Jesus is.
Yeah, okay, don't do that.
But, and like, I know that's not what you mean, but
guys, you're not my friends.
It's being able, because like I've dealt with friends. I say dealt like it's a bad thing. I've been in that situation as well, where I've been jealous of people's friendships with other people, and a lot of the time, I have had like I've had a past relationship where he's told me like, if I'm not going to mean as much to you as God does, and I don't want this. And I've had friendships who don't entirely understand. Tico's looking at my foot again. I'm so sorry. Okay. I've had friendships where, like, obviously, there's been jealousy that sprouted, and being able to, obviously, that's not entirely what I'm trying to get to, but it's being able to show people that as much as they mean to you, I want them to understand that no matter how much I truly do love them, no matter how much I'm willing to give to them, if they are asking me to give up my life with Jesus, it's going to be an absolute no. Mm-hmm. And it's not just waiting for that moment to arise. It's taking I don't want a big event to happen where my friend has to come to the conclusion that God's just always going to mean more to me. It's that taking each and every moment to think about, what does God want me to do? How does he want me to reply to this? How does he want me to handle it? And probably not forcing it on them, being like, oh yeah, God told me that.
Yeah.
Because God's going to reveal things that you do for him in due time.
Exactly.
But it's especially just looking at somebody's demeanor, how they hold themselves, what they really rely on, what they reply to immediately, and what they hold back on. Mm-hmm. That shows you're really living this not for yourself and not for others, but for God.
Yeah.
So I think that's the way I would do that.
Yeah, and even using that, it's encouraging to either new Christians, old Christians, new Christians, young Christians, old Christians, not even Christian. Anyway, wow, went southern there. But no, because people who like don't even know Jesus, they're gonna look at you and be like, how is this friendship different?
Yeah,
because when someone encounters a godly friendship, it's different, and that can make people wonder, how is this different? And they might even come to you and be like, well, it's because Jesus.
Yeah.
And then you can explain all of this to them.
True. There are some times when you're supposed to say, like, it's God. It's the God in me.
Especially because when they're like, how is this happening? You're like, well,
honestly,
Jesus.
It's a great way to be able to, for somebody to ask that, and you being able to answer, like, honestly, I don't know. God just does things in my relationships that I would have never expected him to.
And you just give it to God.
Yeah. That's a big part of it, is just any struggle that you have. Like, there have been so many struggles where I've thought about, like, there's whenever, like, I don't get a text, or I miss somebody's call, I'm like, oh no, are they okay? Is everything all right? Or like, is like our friendship failing or something like that? Are we dying? There are just those small moments where I'm like, I start to worry, and just being able to give that to God is something that just becomes a testimony in itself.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, so nearing the end, could you give one more little summary of the 4 loves?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, how they more relate to Jesus. Just a summary of kind of what we talked about.
Yeah. So affection is something between a father and a son, or a mother and a daughter, or vice versa. And it's being able to understand that the way God wants you to love them is through either respect or consideration, for a father to consider his son, or for the son to respect his father. By that, we also see that God is our heavenly Father, that he loves us in a way that we are his children, and he will never leave us. No matter how much down here we may forsake our family, God is somebody who never forsakes us.
Yeah.
And then is also the starting point for a lot of main loves for us, as a starting point of affection for friendship and eros, and then obviously in some cases God, when we truly start to appreciate who he is. Friendship is being able to trust God with leading you to somebody who will walk you side by side through whatever seasons he needs you to, and understanding that God is our friend. He is the one that we will ultimately be able to be vulnerable with, and at the same time also be able to reference that he is our authoritative figure, but also he's willing to stoop down to us. He's willing to be on the same level, obviously not an authority, but when it comes to relationship, he's able to appreciate us for who we are. And then additionally, when it comes to walking beside our friends, it's being able to appreciate who they are in the journey that we're on, and less just who they are for us.
Yeah.
Eros is being able to understand that for God, he is our lover. He is our husband. He is our bridegroom. We are the bride. And then likewise, the relationships that we have down here when it comes to romantic relationships are something that's supposed to reflect that. It's being able to reject our fleshly desires and being able to appreciate the person that you're with in the purest way possible. That's not just to be like in a romantic way. It's also to be in the understanding that you are your own person, and I'm not going to be your God just because I'm in a relationship with you.
Yeah.
And then additionally, agape obviously is all the past three loves are something that's very conditional. We can easily like blood bonds can essentially be like ignored. Family can go against family. Friends can feel betrayed and leave. Obviously lovers can feel the same way, but the difference between all of those is that they're conditional, and agape is not.
Yeah.
And agape, as much as we truly cannot love God that way, we can only strive to try to love him that way, and eventually obviously being able to love him that way when we get our glorified bodies, when we're finally with him and we're not struggling in this flesh to spirit battle that we're in right now, being able to know that God loves us unconditionally as opposed to how we love him is something that we ultimately should try to achieve, and being able to appreciate how he loves us.
Yeah.
In ways that we cannot.
That's really good. So guys, read The Four Loves by C.S Lewis.
It's great.
It's fantastic. I haven't read it yet, but I know it's great.
You need to read it too.
I know. What am I reading? Case for Christ. Read that too.
Oh my gosh, read it too. I haven't read that either.
I know. One more question before we go. What is one piece of advice you would give the listeners, just in general? Doesn't even have to pertain to anything we talked about today.
All right. Gosh, that's a hard.
Well,
the only thing that's coming to mind right now, aside from the general of just like focus on God entirely, is this little thing that's really been helping me out recently. It was this little quote that I heard from actually a different podcast that I listened to. If you have to swallow one frog, do it first thing in the morning. If you have to swallow two frogs, do them one after the other. So it's doing the hardest thing the first thing in the morning, and if you have to do two hard things, do them back to back.
That's good.
Thank you.
That's good. Well, guys, this was Sarah Barbour on Faith Walks, not Face Walks. And we'll catch you next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Hey, guys. Thanks for listening to the episode today. And just a reminder, if you ever need prayer or just inspiration or just someone to talk to, my DMs are always open. I think I'm going to put an email in one of the descriptions somewhere, either on YouTube, Spotify, or Instagram. And, just send me a DM, send me an email, whatever. I got you guys. Please stick around next time for the next interview, which I actually don't know who will be yet, but it'll be interesting. Thank you for listening again. I love you guys. Mwah.